Hey everybody, it's Ken. So thank you guys so much for all the great questions that you're sending in. I have been reading them and looking at them, and it's certainly helped me design new content exactly for you. So keep the questions coming in. Thank you so much. One of the questions that keeps coming up is, where do the rich store their wealth? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is exactly, some of the studying that I've done personally and also what I'm doing right now during this crisis. As we all know, unemployment's going to run out probably at the end of July. At least that's what they say at the moment. Businesses have not been open, and some are now just opening, but it's kind of a new normal. They're not opening to the robust customers that they had before, and they're certainly not making the money that they were before, a lot of them, and a lot of them just aren't opening. So we are kind of dealing with this right now, and what I want to do is I want to try to focus on, what we could be doing, not necessarily where we are right now, but what we should be doing, what we should be studying. So the first thing is that I want to go over is I want to talk a little bit about these are the habits of the investment habits of the poor, the middle class, and the rich. So I'm going to call these investment habits. So what's happening right now is everybody's blaming everybody. People want to blame the government. They want to blame Trump. They want to blame the Republicans. They want to blame the Democrats. And as long as you guys are going to continue to do that, you will not move forward. That's a fact. The situation that we're all in is based on the choices that we've all made. Now, I do understand that some of us have advantages and some of us have been through different kinds of circumstances, and some of us just are working really, really hard to get what we have, and maybe we're working really hard and we're not getting what we have. And I just want to walk through these. These are talked about in the cash flow games. They're talked about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and they're talked in a number of books. And so the poor, what they do is they make their money and they basically spend expenses typically on rent. And maybe they have some savings, they go on vacations, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing wrong with that. But that's typically the way that the poor are handling their money. Now the middle class, what they typically do is they do the same stuff on the expense side. They buy liabilities like cars and boats and things like that over here, and then they turn their money over to a wealth manager. For it, or they stick it in deposits, fixed deposits or retirement savings or wealth management. And that's kind of where the middle class is. And by the way, my definition of middle class, that could be somebody that has millions of dollars, okay? I'm talking about rich. So I'm not talking about people that have, that have a lot of toys and stuff, because that's exactly the pattern. It's not necessarily a good sustainable pattern unless they have a good solid income. The rich do things very, very, very differently. So they still have the expenses and the liabilities and all that stuff. But what they're doing is that they're investing in assets. And the definition of an asset is something that puts money in your pocket. So Robert Kiyosaki says, and a lot of people have said, that the rich don't work for money. And this is true. So right now, I have 8,000 tenants paying rent, paying mortgages and all our billing, paying all the expenses, paying all my employees and all that stuff. And I have what's called passive income coming in. Now, a lot of those people got hurt. A lot of them aren't paying. But with the stimulus money, a lot of them are paying. The point is I'm in assets. So I'm not actually working for my money. It's already at work for me. It's called the velocity of money. And so this is kind of the pattern of the middle class, and this is the pattern for the rich. And so what I wanted to show here is that most middle class, they go to work for a job and then they pay big taxes. And if you want to see a great tax video, go take a look at some of Tom Wheelwright's work, because a sole proprietor or the employee is one of the biggest taxed there can be. In fact, that is where most of the tax comes. Most of the businesses down here, like for me, I have things like depreciation and bonus depreciation and things that I can write off in my business legally to reduce my taxes significantly. And typically the middle class they're getting loans for things and they're paying those loans and the money's not coming back. So the difference between the rich and the middle class on the loan side is right here in this arrow. And basically the money comes back. As the rich build businesses and they acquire new skills and they study, and that's what we're going to talk about here is right here, this studying piece. And then they invest in assets that come back, like apartment buildings or office buildings or retail or whatever it is. Now, this is complicated. This is hard to do. But the truth is, if you can change your habits, then you're going to change your results. And if you don't change your habits, then you're not going to change your results. The best quote ever is Jim Rohn. He says, "The formal education will make you a living." And it's true, but a self-education will make you a fortune. If you haven't studied Jim Rohn, he's a great, great person to study. And so what I'm going to walk you through is kind of some of the things that I've done from an education standpoint, and also some of the things that you can do to just think differently about money and how you can end up on the other side of this crisis in a better situation. So the first thing that I want you to know is that for a lot of people, this self-education is a process. So what happens with education a lot of times, it certainly happened with me, when I got out of school, I'm like, okay, I have all this knowledge, even though it was knowledge from a book and not experience and practical knowledge. I didn't really have world knowledge. I didn't really have a self-education. I had a formal education, but I didn't have a self-education. And I have a lot of friends that have never even been to college that are very, very, very intelligent people, and it's all because of self-education. But I don't know about you guys, but here's basically the story of my life. So, first I get out of school and I get a job, and it's not exactly what I want, and then I go get another job, and it's not exactly what I want, or I decided to start my own business. So then I started my own business, and then I had a partnership fallout, and then I started another business, and then I had some relationship issues, and then I started another business, and I started investing in things that I didn't understand, and on and on and on. And so I think a lot of you guys have very similar situations, but here's the thing. Here's where most people don't focus. They don't focus here. They don't focus when things are down, and that's where we're heading. And so what happens is, I don't think my life is any different than anybody else's. I've had my shares of wins, and I've had my shares of losses, and I've had my shares of failures, just like anybody. But the point is, if you don't actually learn from these, then you're going to be in big, big trouble, big trouble. And it's at these times, if you could sit back and take a look at exactly what are some of the behaviors and some of the habits that you've done, then I guarantee you can ride this next wave up. Because this education piece, it is a process. There is inside of you a bigger you, for sure. You just haven't seen it yet. And so what happens is a lot of people are scared. They're scared of failure. They're scared to ask questions. Maybe they're analyzing things too much and they never make a decision. Whatever it is, it's a process, and you got to break free, and you just got to try things. You just got to take one step, then the next step. Now, I'm not saying to be not prudent. You have to be prudent. You have to make the right decisions. You have to counsel. You have to watch videos like this. You have to watch other people's videos, even ones that have different opposing views of me, because that's all just good education. As long as you can just keep an open mind, then you'll progress forward. So the biggest thing that I learned was that information versus transformation. So information can be a lot of different things. And for a lot of people, it's typically a formal education. But it isn't until the transformation kicks in which is, which is here at the bottoms, that you actually learn. I can tell you from personal experience, when I was making a lot of money, and we were really killing it up in here, I wasn't learning a thing. In fact, and that's what we're all going through right now. Everybody's just made a lot of money, and what happens is you're not necessarily taking a big picture view about what could go wrong. And so that's the situation everybody's in. And they're fearful, they have uncertainty, and they're angry, a lot of them. But it's their own issue. And I'm telling you guys, from a kid that grew up with nothing, from parents that never went to college, and never even barely graduated from high school, I'm telling you that you can do this. I'm telling you, I grew up with parents that were just after the Depression, and they couldn't afford anything, and they couldn't. And my mom used to say, we can't afford this, we can't afford this, we can't afford this. Those are mindset issues. And so if you can transform those into how I can't afford to I can afford, you'll be much, much better off. And so what I want to end on here before I jump to how the rich store their wealth is the difference between self-education. It lowers your risk, and that's what we're trying to do. The more you know, the more books you read. As an example, here's some books that I read in the last recession. I pulled these out for this video. The Great Reset, Boom, Bust, and Echo, Big Shifts Ahead. I bought these in 2009, 10 years ago, because I wanted to learn, okay, I just got hit in my stock portfolio, I just got hit in my real estate portfolio. What can I do? I don't have all the answers, but there's a lot of people that are very smart that can help you through this. And the more you ask, the more videos you watch, the more books you read, you're going to lower your risk. You're going to make better decisions going forward. So the question is that everybody's been asking is, where does the wealthy store their money? And what should you study? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about next. So one of the great things that we do at Rich Dad is we study books. And one of the books that I studied was called Crash Course with Chris Martenson. And this guy is a genius. He's got a great story. He's got some really good facts in here, and I've had an opportunity to hang out with him a lot in Mexico. He's been up to my resort up in Sedona as we were looking at bringing that resort fully sustainable. So I would recommend Chris Martenson, looking him up, Peak Prosperity. But one of the things that I really learned from him were that there's 3 tiers of wealth, and I think you guys are going to learn a lot here. Because there's primary, secondary, and tertiary. And once I can lay this out to you, I can kind of talk to you about, once I kind of lay this out for you, I can show you how there's kind of a herd mentality into the top tier, which is the most risky tier. And so the 3 tiers of wealth, as Chris calls them, are primary, secondary, and tertiary. And so what I wanted to do here was just kind of walk through. So as far as an investment is concerned, you basically have choices. You could invest in the tertiary, you can invest in the secondary, or you can invest in the primary. So let me walk through what those are. So the primary is land, oil, gold, timber, coal, water. So you get it. So those are primary. So these are what you could call natural resources. So here's the interesting thing. This is not where most people invest. So now, I like to put land in here because that's what landlord, land is also, even though the business is in the secondary category, it really is something that a lot of people store their wealth in: land, oil, gold, timber, coal, water, etc. These are natural resources. These are all things that come from the earth, okay? Now, the interesting thing is the secondary tier, which is basically business. So think about this. So let's just talk about Mobil Oil. Mobil Oil is a business, and they extract oil into their business, and their business is a functioning unit, okay? It has income and has expenses, but they're getting oil from someone. They're getting it from you, they're getting it from me, or maybe it's land that they bought. Whatever it is, it's coming out of the ground, okay? Same thing with Weyerhaeuser, let's say, for timber. Weyerhaeuser is based out of the Northwest. I know for a fact that they harvest timber off of other people's land, and they have their own land. And so they're a business, they're a secondary business, and they pull timber and then they turn it into lumber, and then they sell it to the lumber stores, which are also businesses. So there's a big, big world of business, but it all happens here in the primary sector. In fact, there is no secondary without primary. So in other words, there is no business unless it derives its resources from here. And this is where all wealth is created. So all wealth is created at the primary level, if you think about it. The problem is that a lot of people don't invest here. What they do is they invest here or they invest here. And so the last piece at the top is paper. So we have natural resources, business, and paper. And what do I mean by paper? I mean stock. I mean bonds. I mean ETFs. Derivatives. And I'm even going to throw cash in here because I think right now cash is being printed so much, it technically is paper. It's fiat money. And so what happens is it's an education issue. And so a lot of times what's going to happen is you're going to work hard and you're going to turn your money over and you're going to put it into this tertiary sector, into this paper category, and it's going to stay in stocks, bonds, ETFs, and derivatives. And I just want you to understand how far away you are from the actual source. Because if you're buying, let's say, a Weyerhaeuser stock, you're buying a stock in the secondary, and then the secondary has all kinds of contracts and excavation and things that they're doing from somebody that owns the timber. And so what you want to be, the wealthy invest here. They invest in the primary category. They invest in real timber. They invest in real land that has oil. In Texas, we were buying properties that had oil reserves near them, and we were cutting deals with oil and gas to drill vertically down under our properties, and we were getting residual income because we owned the land. And we had an apartment property on top of them. And so not only were we making money from the rent of the property, but we were making money by cutting a deal with oil and gas companies because they were drilling down underneath and going vertically. And in some cases, they could go miles, but every property that they went under vertically, they had to cut a deal with. And so we were getting residuals based on their production. And so the problem is that most people, what they do is they invest here. And this here, guys, this is what the stock market in 1933, when it busted, this is the reason. It's because most of the wealth was stuck in the paper asset category. And so that's what's happening now, is most people aren't educated enough where they turn their money over to a financial planner or a wealth manager, and they're investing in here. And the biggest reason is because the people that are putting you into these categories, they get fees for doing it. It's very hard to invest in these categories because you have to find a landowner like myself and understand how to buy things and understand what it means and understand what the contracts are with these businesses, etc. But most people, most of the wealthy people, they're investing here and they're investing here. I'm not saying that you can't make a lot of money in the stock market. I'm not saying that you can't make a lot of money in Wall Street. But I'm saying that it is the most risky, in my opinion, of all things. Because what we're starting to see now, you're starting to see the government bailouts here at the secondary level. And maybe not, it works up to the tertiary level. A lot of these businesses are on life support right now. But at the end of the day, when businesses go out, when companies go out of business, what still will stay are the primary resources, the natural resources, and there will always be a company that will get wealthy extracting resources from the earth, because this is where all the wealth is created. So as you guys try to navigate all of this and you try to figure out what to do next, just be very, very careful about turning your money over to somebody else and not understanding where it is. Even if it's in the ETF form. So I had a great question this week. Somebody said, what's the difference between gold, ETF, and physical gold? And I said, literally, it's literally that. I pulled out a gold coin, and I said, this is a gold coin. It's worth about $1,800 right now for 1 ounce. And it eventually makes its way all the way up into these ETFs. And what you need to know is that when you add up all these ETFs, there's actually more gold ETFs than there's actual physical gold. And so you need to be very, very careful on what you're doing on turning over your money. And this all has to do with what I said before about education and transformation. Because if you guys aren't getting educated and you're just turning your money over to someone else, then that's your own fault. And I'm telling you guys, you do have the power to turn this around. Use this next time. Use all this pain, this depression, this stimulus money, this time that you have to educate yourself. Find a coach, find a mentor, read some books, watch videos, ask lots of questions, and try not to have a fixed mindset on any of this stuff. Keep a very open, more of a growth mindset. And I'm telling you, this will be a small correction. It'll be a learning correction, just like I showed you at the bottom of, at some of mine. Those were times where I had the most reflection, I had the most accountability, and I took responsibility for every decision I made. And that's the only reason that I'm doing well during this particular downturn. So thank you again for watching.